Hello there, Crafty Doer. Jessica Michaels here from the Crafty Doings for a cherry on top and March's YouTube Hop. The theme for this month is monochromatic, and I have the perfect paper pad to help me out with today's paper project. So grab a comfy chair, grab all your crafty things, and let's get into the crafty doings. If you don't know, monochromatic just means using multiple shades of the same color, like I find in here and in the paper pad. And what a perfect paper pad for a monochromatic layout. I'm also going to use 49 in Market, Vicky Bouton's Irresistible Titles, 49 in Market's Nostalgic Memories laser cut, and their word bits. And I've grabbed these distress oxides to see which ones I can color match the best with this paper pad. So I watched him hold to do his quote unquote unboxing for this palette, and he shared something very cool about his design. So you will get two double pattern paper. However, when you flip them over, they're different in the back, and I thought that was very cool of him to add behind the design of this paper pad. I am using the 8x8 because I do scrap 8x8. So I'm going to use this American Crafts textured white cardstock as my base, and I'm going to trim these strips of paper. But before I do that, I want to add some Distress Oxide to my page. I'm going to use tea dye and just gently smear it all across my cardstock, focusing on the top because the bottom I'm going to cover with the pattern paper. Now you can skip spritzing it with some water and using a paintbrush to move it around. If you don't want to get too messy with your layout. However, when I apply that water, it activates the oxide and it brings out the other tones of colors, like a little bit of yellow and a tiny bit of some pink, but it's totally up to you. I used to be intimidated to add any liquid medium to my scrapbooking layouts because it would warp the paper or even wrinkle it. But I learned that it's just paper and I can add a little bit of heat. I could even run it through a laminate machine, or more commonly what I do is press it with my heat press to get all those wrinkles out, or as much as I can. It actually doesn't really bother me as much because I end up putting it in a plastic sleeve anyways. But I wonder, is that one of the reasons that you hesitate to do a little mixed media on your scrapbook layouts? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments section below. So now off to trim these strips. I'm really happy about this pattern paper that Tim Holtz included in this pad because I don't have to go and trim a few inches of strips from each pattern paper, and I can keep my whole 8x8 since it's not very much. But after I trim these down, I'm going to play around with the patterns a little bit. And again, because I scrapbook an 8x8, I don't think I'm going to need all of them. I'm going to play with the hues because I have a stack of Distress Oxides, and I think I want to go with this one because it has that darker, like aged mahogany, deep pink there. So what I'm going to do is spritz the strip of the paper with water, and then because this softens it a little bit and it allows me to fold the paper back and forth a lot easier and prevent tears. The coolest thing about this technique is that when the paper dries, which by the time I'm done folding them back and forth, it's mostly dry, it's going to stay in the shape or in the form of however I fold it. Now, the idea behind this is that it's going to be a ruffle, and it reminds me of just vintage grunge And that's the vibe that I want to this page. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to the rest of the strips. And this is how I'm going to adhere it to my base. I'm going to bring in my photos and my title to get a visual, see what I'm working with here, see how many ruffles I truly need, and then move forward and spritzing the strips, folding them up, and continuing creating my ruffles. Okay, it's time to do my color matching. I'm thinking I like the aged mahogany, and the Victorian velvet is a little too purple, so that one's gonna go out. It's between these two, and I feel like the saltwater taffy is a little too neon for this color palette, so I'm gonna stick with Tattered Rose. And I'm going to ink blend Tattered Rose on a Tim Holtz layered stencil that looks like lace. Blend both Tattered Rose and Aged Mahogany through the stencil. However, when I get to the Aged Mahogany, I'm going to go very lightly because it is a very deep color. Next, I'm going to create my title, and I'm going to use Vicki Boutin's Irresistibles. All I simply have to do is add some ink to the chipboards and wipe it off. So I'm going to go in with the deep aged mahogany and then Tattered Rose. I'm going to ink blend sporadically so that it's not an ombre or it's not half and half. It's just going to nicely blend. I'm going to spritz my cloth with some water and then wipe off the excess ink off of the Irresistibles. You will see that it comes right off. However, the word absorbed all of the color. After looking at my title a little bit, I decide that I want it to be a little deeper. So I'm going to reach for Aged Mahogany in Distress ink and blend that into the Irresistibles. Tell me why as soon as I spray the ink, it turns like a vibrant red almost. I'm not happy. I'm going to try to save it by using a paintbrush and moving the ink around, hoping that it blends into the Distress oxide, but it is just getting more and more bright red. So I'm going to go in with more Distress oxide in hope that it covers it up. It should, because it's opaque versus the ink, which is clear. A couple tips when you use these Irresistibles. Number one, be sure that you dry in between layers. And number two, I recommend using a clean cloth or paper towel. And every time you go to wipe, make sure that you use a clean area of your cloth or paper towel. That way the ink doesn't smear and you're actually accomplishing removing the excess ink. Now it's time to begin to assemble my page, and I'm going to use some cherry foam tape to adhere my photos as well as my title because I have so much dimension with the ruffles. I need to elevate everything else. Now, I admit it was a bit time consuming to adhere the ruffles, but it's totally worth it. And because I got so excited, I didn't realize that I adhered the last ruffle on top of my photo strip, and I did not want that. I want it tucked in. So it's no big deal. I do this quite often with a metal spatula. I do a little paper surgery to remove the paper from the base, and then I re-glue it wherever I wanted it to begin with. Let me know I'm not the only one that is a master at paper surgery. Now that my layout is in post-op, I'm going to dive in to these gorgeous lace laser cuts. I'm going to use this one right on top of that ruffle to hide the glue that's on my photo, and also just to kind of add a pretty edge to that last ruffle. I can't decide if I want something on top of the layout or if I want it more clean. So I'm just gonna kind of let it sit there while I add some foam squares to my title and adhere that to my page. Let me know what you think. Would you add that lace on top, or would you leave it without? Give it a little space up there. I decided I needed some movement on the top of my page, so I'm going to use the other half of the laser cut lace, and ink up the edges with aged mahogany. One of the last things I do to this paper project is add a little Distress Oxide in Vintage Photo to the edge, as well as run my ink blending brush right across the ruffles, bringing it all together. Thanks so much for watching. I truly hope that you were inspired and encouraged to try a little mixed media on your scrapbook layouts. For more tips, tricks, and mixed media inspiration, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hop along at each video and comment for your chance to win a gift card to a cherry on top. Until the next crafty doing.